Welcome to our UCLA Extension Department of Business, Management, and Legal Programs video lecture series on entrepreneurship, new venture formation, and strategic business plan development. The video that you are about to watch is instructions and introduction to how to set up your administrative systems for your business. In essence, how to activate your business plan. I'm Harry Redinger, your instructor. There is a total of over 40 videos in this lecture series that integrate with our UCLA Extension online course management program, Canvas. Each video strives to be brief and will have a bit of overlap with other videos to tie our curriculum together. Okay, let's get started. Before we get in to the subject matter of this lecture, a good analogy to keep in the back of your mind that once people finish developing a business plan, sometimes you can feel, like a dog that's been chasing a car. Now that you've caught the car, now that the business plan is done, now what are you going to do? Bite the tires? So, just like we can have financial management systems, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and things of that sort, it's important to set up and start living our life in accordance with, shall we say, corporate administrative systems or business executive management systems. And this subject matter really deals with the lifestyle, the mindset of senior management, of a CEO, of an entrepreneur. We're going to introduce to you how to work with three types of management skills or management tools. And so this slide here shows these tools, and the first is how to work with the setup and managing of meeting agendas. What are we going to talk about? How to develop action item registers so the results of this meeting will be recorded and managed this way. As well as how to develop and manage and take meeting minutes. And then it's not down here, but also how to manage your corporate calendar, your calendar of things to be done. And that's really a part of your action item register. That interfaces, that's a part of your calendar. Sometimes we'll call it our corporate calendar. A calendar that tracks deadlines and responsibilities of the corporation. But when we start locking ourselves into weekly meetings, and even if it's just with ourselves, and then having some kind of minutes that fall out of these meetings, and then also what action is going to take place. So we can start on action item register and record. So what many organizations do, it's 52 weeks in a year. So week one is meeting one. And then the actions is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So we list the actions that come out of that meeting, and then what's to be done, who's it going to be delegated to, and when is it supposed to be completed by. And we're going to get all of that in just a minute. But when we start managing our life by what needs to be done, be completed, that's on this action item to register, that's interfacing with our corporate calendar, and anything that's listed in here, we're also going to have meeting agendas, and meeting agendas always have old business, new business, so we're always kind of being current of what's in process. As we get into the subject matter, I think you all want to be aware of what's referred to as Robert's Rules of Order. And the very first version of Robert's Rules of Order was published in 1876. Bear in mind, the American Revolution was 1776, so this is exactly 100 years to the year after the American Revolution, just by coincidence. Also know there is an association called the American Institute of Parliamentarians, but we call it Parliamentary Procedures. That's what Robert's Rules of Order is all about, is parliamentary procedures. So most corporations manage their meetings with shareholders, stockholders, with parliamentary procedures, or Robert's Rules of Order. Any formation of people that is empowered to make group decisions that have consequences, entering into contracts, making decisions that can apply to other people from a legal standpoint, and or to execute and live up to what we often refer to as fiduciary responsibilities. These forms of meetings have to have agendas. They have to have meeting minutes that are recorded. And as we get into it, the first point of action at the beginning of meetings held within the context of parliamentary procedures, first step is everyone gets a copy of the meetings from the last meeting, and then the group has to approve. So someone has to make a motion to approve the minutes of the past meeting. If there are any corrections or exceptions, then speak up. The corrections are made, then all in favor of accepting the minutes of the past meeting say aye. Everyone says aye. Minutes are now filed as official records of action of the corporation or the nonprofit or the advisory board or whatever it may take, but particularly in the context of a corporation. A corporation is a living entity separate from human beings. And so per the laws of the state which the corporation was incorporated in, these minutes have to be taken. It shows the actions and thought processes and decision-making processes of this living, non-human entity. I know that's a mouthful, but in essence, that's what's going on, and that's one of the reasons why there has to be rules by which these meetings are held and managed. Also know that in the Articles of Incorporation, that the Articles of Incorporation state how the corporation is going to manage itself. And often and sometimes stated in the Articles of Incorporation that it shall manage itself in accordance with the Robert's Rules of Order or the American Institute of Parliamentarians Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure. That could be written right into the Articles of Incorporation, meaning that the CEO, the officer or president of the corporation, is going to have to conduct business in accordance with the rules stated in these books. Anyway, parliamentary procedures is the body of rules, ethics, and customs governing meetings and other operations of clubs, organizations, legislative bodies, and other deliberative assemblies. For example, another point is like a state government or federal government, caucuses, special meetings have to be conducted in this way, and they have like a court reporter person who records everything that gets spoken, just like it's a court of law. It's very much on the same level as a court of law. I want you to be aware, just like with accounting, like QuickBooks, they manage all the details of financial management, accounts receivable, payable, and it generates reports and all that kind of stuff. Also be aware that there are programs that manage all this information too. So two very popular programs. One's called ACT, and ACT I think stands for Account, Contact, and Tracking. It's a Windows program. There is a Mac program called Daylight that is often referred to as ACT for the Mac. And these are they used to be programs you buy in a box and get a bunch of CDs. Now they're like everything else. It's a cloud distributed type program. So you actually buy a license for a year or on a monthly basis. So these are very powerful programs, but they can track all your accounts and calendar, but it's and how you can share emails between members of an organization and memos and stuff. But it can also be set up to track meeting agendas, the actions that's taken from it, minutes, and all that kind of stuff. There are also many other programs that are set up to do this too, but these are some popular ones. Anyway, so you're aware that this too can be digitized and managed with a computer program. This particular diagram here is very comprehensive. It kind of lays out all that goes on in corporate administration. So if we start to take a close look at it, we have meeting agendas. We have the actual meeting. The blue box represents the actual meeting. And as we stated back when we were having lectures on organizational structure, there's the organizational structure, and per the organizational structure, we have old business and new business. So, for example, old business, new business administration, old business, new business marketing, old business, new business restaurant operations, old business, new business pub operations, accounting and bookkeeping, etc. And then the fallout, what then comes out of the meeting below is meeting minutes, meeting action item register, and corporate calendar. Note, and we're going to drill into this more, but note the line that goes from meeting minutes up to meeting agenda. So the meeting minutes always go back up to the next, are part of the agenda of the next meeting, and everyone gets a copy because everyone has to, the first thing the chairman of the board, the CEO, or the president goes, do all accept and approve the meetings of the last minute? And then somebody goes, I make a motion to approve the meetings of the last minute. And then the board chair goes, all in favor in approving the meetings of the board minutes, say aye. Aye. Okay? Meetings of the last minute are now officially filed or accepted. And then the secretary then goes, fine, it takes minutes, and then that goes into a folder or into a hard drive, but that's officially, that's what happens with the minutes every time there's an official meeting. In this case, it would be weekly. Also, there's an action item register, a list of what needs to be done per department, and so there's a way of just like in accounting, we're tracking accounts payable, accounts receivable. Here we can track the obligations that each manager of the organization, but as well as what's been delegated to whom, and when is it going to be completed by, and then it can be a part of old business, or it can be scheduled in here. In this case, on the corporate calendar, that John is going to go research something in the marketplace and report back in 4 weeks, and so that's logged into the corporate calendar. Then the secretary or the person in charge of doing the clerical management of the administrative systems will, in preparation for the agenda for the meeting 4 weeks, when that meeting comes up, he or she will put on the agenda John's report on such and such. He or she'll probably call up and, John, are you ready to do the report? Are we still good for this date? There's a certain obligation to, if he doesn't have it done by that date, that he has to give an explanation. So you probably still have to say something on the agenda because everyone is expecting this report that he agreed to, or the board agreed to have done 4 weeks ago. So anyway, meeting agenda. So here we can see we've got the organizational structure categories, the departments, old business, new business, old business, new business. So so that's this is a great example to kind of see how that when we had our lecture on organizational structure, division of labor, leaving, specialization. This is one of the applications of it. This is also a good reminder why we want to keep our org structure simple. The more boxes we have, the longer our meeting agenda is going to be. So it's got to be very logical in terms of what are logical areas of dividing labor based on specialization. Okay, so our weekly meeting management systems, and now let's drill down and take a look at it. So we just talked about what happens with the meeting minutes, the pre-meeting agenda, survey notes, and then the corporate calendar, old business. So that stuff this is the stuff that happens before the meeting happens. So we have the meeting minutes of the last meeting, the pre-meeting agenda in terms of going around and finding out who wants to talk about what, and then that all falls into the old business, new business of the meeting agenda. Then the meeting is called the order. The chair, the president, the CEO calls the meeting the order, and the minutes are approved, and then the meeting agenda follows. Then the next thing that follows, and then as we go through the meeting and all the decisions are made, the next thing falls out is now we're going to have meeting minutes from that meeting, and we're going to have an action item register, and we're going to have new stuff that's going to go into our corporate calendar. We also can fall out of that individual tasks, department tasks, and company-wide tasks. And so all that stuff fits really well into the ACT program or the Daylight program or some kind of way so people can say, well, what do I have to get done this week? So it's a way of delegating and tracking things to be done for the individual, the department, or the overall organization. There's some great books on corporate administration out there, and this is just an example. There's books and YouTube videos. There's also organizations that manage this for you, that do minutes and all that stuff. If you're an individual with a corporation and you have to file this stuff, there's law firms as well as consulting services that will do this for you, because you do have to file corporate minutes at least once a year. So you got to have at least one meeting a year and file the minutes of that meeting. And then so we want to take this stuff seriously, and I have here, be serious about these responsibilities. They are the heartbeat of your business. So, and a lot of people, disregard this stuff, but if you manage your lifestyle with agendas, minutes, and if you practice like a corporation that's growing, that's going to go someplace, then like with a vision board and that mindset, you're more likely to have this stuff happen. If you treat your life and your business like, we'll worry about that when it's time to worry about that, then sometimes we never really get that aura, that corporate culture growth, and we never get past being a one-person firm. So kind of bear that in mind, that if you walk like a duck and talk like a duck and act like a duck, you're probably just a duck. But if you walk like a corporation, act like a corporation, present yourself as a corporation, go through the moves that an executive manager would do with a corporation, the more likely you will become a brand image respected organization in your marketplace. I want to talk about, this is just pure mentoring, it's pure coaching stuff. I want to talk a little bit about things to be aware of when you go to execute your business. Initial phase 1 project management systems. So, this is before this is that funny transition phase between being, an individual initiating phase 1 where it might be just you, or you and your best friend, or your spouse that's trying to make this business happen. So I'm going to touch base on just a few things to be kind of keep in the back of your mind as you start to activate your business plan before you might even have a checking account. So first off, activate corporate culture management, corporate management systems. Those are all of this, and we just talked about them, agendas, meetings. Even if it's something you're doing with yourself, do it. Open up a file cabinet. Get ACT, get Daylight, get some kind of program. Read a book on corporate administration. But start building these agendas. Start working with a to-do list every week that touches base on old business, new business, even if it's your personal life. But start tracking old business, new business per your functional divisions of labor, and you're going to be a little more focused on bringing life to this comprehensive set of tasks that will turn into a business someday. Activate your financial systems right away. As we talked out in our lecture on setting up your financial, your Quick and QuickBooks. If you disregard this stuff and put it off to the end of the year, so you tick, 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 and you got a week before your tax return's done, and you realize you got a year full of checks and credit card transactions and none of it has gone into a computer, you've got a problem. And it could be a catastrophic problem. It could be a fatal problem, because the amount of work, because if you're psychologically tired and you realize, oh my God, I've got 12 months of data and a lot of it to enter into a computer to get this tax return out. I mean, you can file extensions, but and if you don't even know anything about how to set up and work with Quick and QuickBooks, it could be kind of dramatic, to say the least, to realize that you are really behind schedule. So activate this stuff right away, so you're not caught off guard at the end of the year with just a humongous amount of information that you got to pull together to file a tax return. Identify your phase 1 tasks and priorities. Kind of just, so per Stephen Covey's time management matrix, get a system down for, urgent, important but not urgent. Develop, Stephen Covey wrote this really great book called First Things First. So, and it's important to start living your life with some kind of management system, because if you don't, you can't go 24 hours all the time. You got to take time for, and I've got that down here. It's down here someplace, and managing your social, physical, and mental health. So you got to get on a schedule. So you got all these things going on in phase 1. Get all this stuff racked up and organized with a management system, so that you've got, in essence, you are really tracking old business, new business on all of the functions of the bit categories, org structure, even if you're still just a one, person firm. To coordinate your phase 1 resources. So, whatever they may be, it just might be you, but let's say you have some friends, some colleagues, an advisory board, investments, inventory, startup clients, but you've got to start coordinating that stuff and lining that stuff up, so it, maybe it's in the garage and the garage is a mess. So make sure the garage is organized. By the way, a little sidebar here. It's amazing how many really, really successful organizations start in a garage. We can look at Apple computers. We can look at Microsoft. And I have a number of past students who that started their business in this class, and they've got multi-million-dollar organizations now. And they literally started in the dining room, the living room, the garage, in terms of the departments in the manufacturing process. It's really, really kind of interesting, but it's not that unusual that, you've got to get your systems organized. And if they're not and it's a mess, then the more likely you are to get tripped up and never get to, first base. I put this down here just as a reminder. If you collapse, the whole business collapse. And statistically speaking, 90% of businesses fail within the first 2.5 years, and a whole lot of just fail within the first weeks, because people, oh my God, what the hell did I just get into? And I have personal experience of that. I launched a business called Veggie Pack. It lasted for 3 years. It really never got into business because I was so busy figuring it out and building it and writing business plans. And when I realized that the numbers weren't going to work, and I realized that how I went about starting it was not, because I had no experience in the food processing industry, that was wrong. And that, this is how you learn. You just go out and do it sometimes. And there was this is a business that was specialized in custom blended chopped vegetables. No one does anything like that. So there was no model to study. There was no example businesses. That's one of the reasons I was so excited, because I saw it as a huge frontier, and it still is. And there's reasons why a business like this, it can't be started off as a catering or a small enterprise, and I won't get into the details now, but you wouldn't know unless you tried. And many business concepts and models are just that way, unless you go out. But I bring this up because about 2.5 years into it, and when I realized the approach I took wasn't going to work, I was out of gas. I literally didn't care anymore. I said, give me my life back. I am done. I am done knocking my head up against a wall to try to get this thing off the ground. And of course, if I did it again, I would have taken a totally bit different approach. And as I regroup and as resources appear in the future, I might give another run at it. But you, after about 2.5 years of putting your lifeblood into something, if it doesn't start, taking off, your physical health, your social health, your mental health all start to suffer. So you want to start managing and taking care of these 3 categories of health. Make sure you have time to participate in the community and be with friends and family. Make sure that you're eating right and exercising and not doing too much, alcohol and libations and things of that sort. And make sure that you do things that, mental health, emotional intelligence. I thank God that I study and practice emotional intelligence and yoga all the time. It helps me keep my act together. Okay, so our next slide is staying focused on your milestones. So, just like we have phases when we do our biography or our company history, but I'm focused more on the biography standpoint. We have phases in our life, and there are certain milestones that have taken place in our life. Well, just like we track and record milestones in our biography, as we go forward to launch a business, there's certain key turning points, certain key objectives, things that symbolize the closure of a phase and going on into the new phase in terms of the growth and development of your life and or business. Be aware of what those milestones are and treat them like a vision of success strategy. Get a vision board image where you can get an image of you achieving that milestone where it's on your refrigerator, it's on the rearview mirror of your car, it's in your bedroom, in your office, in the bathroom, and that becomes your focus. Just be aware that you've got to keep a focus on achieving your milestones. Then finally, identifying your key support people. Take care of the people who are taking care of you, making sure you check in with them. Your advisors, your mentors, your advisory board, your first employee. Just keep, you want to make sure they're doing well and you're tracking their mental health, physical health, and social health too. This is just as a general kind of management awareness and possibly awakening. But as you manage the startup of a business, you're always managing quality, cost, and time. If time is extended or goes up or down, or quality goes up, so does cost. So they're connected all the time, and one influences the other. But you always want to have like a sixth sense all the time of quality, cost, and time. What's going on? I want to talk a little bit about organizational growth and your personal growth, and then I'll wrap up our talk. But so here we're going to talk about managing organizational growth. Manage quality, cost, and time associated with the phase of competitive development, okay? So I've got the little quality, cost, and time diagram up there. So as you go through your phase of competitive development, make sure you're not going too slow or too fast. Make sure you're not compromising quality. Make sure you're not doing dumb things that are running costs out of proportion, etc. Stay in control of your attitude and corporate culture. And that's why I put the 4 agreements up there. Agreement number 1 is have impeccable word, and agreement number 2 is don't take things personally. Don't let the words of others control your attitude. And third is don't make assumptions and just be your best. But the 4 agreements, if you practice the 4 agreements without getting into the concept of the 7 chakras of yoga and all that kind of stuff, but if you practice the 4 agreements, they keep you from blocking any of your chakras. And I don't want to get into a discussion on emotional intelligence and yoga chakras and things like that. But to keep it simple, practicing the 4 agreements is just one of those things that's so simple to do. It's so logical, and sometimes hard to do, but in theory, it's not that hard to do, and it can have such a powerful impact. If you practice just the first 2 agreements of the 4 agreements, you'll wipe out 80% of the stress in your life. So being aware of taking care of number 1 first as you go through this really, really complex process to become an entrepreneur, which, by the way, only 20% of our population achieve that status in their life. The 4 agreements can help you get through that startup process where most fail. Manage your internal and external organizational relationships. Gosh, that sounds easy, but it's not, because there's a lot of very difficult people to work with out there, and you got to be kind of careful who you expose yourself to, and how thin you spread yourself to, because sometimes your phone will go off the hook. Everyone wants to talk to you, or people are out to get you and use you, and it can be kind of difficult. So you've got to have a lot of self-control and composure as you start this process of leading your organization through these phases of competitive development, because it's if things start to take off, you're hiring people. Nothing's really stable. Everything's kind of chaotic for some time until things start to settle down into administrative procedures for accounting and marketing and sales and production management and all the things that makes your particular organization work. So, and how some things start off as an outsourced function and how they become now an in-house function. So it takes a while before an organization starts to acquire and have a corporate culture, a certain form of harmony to it, because everything's changing so much all the time. Facilitate your organizational change with self-confidence and supportive leadership that emanates from within you. It's just an aura of self-confidence and connectivity with the people you care about, because you've got to be the Rock of Gibraltar. People are going to look for you to be strong, focused, sturdy, a man or woman on a mission, because they're going to get behind you. And if you project a weakness or unsureness, then it's just not a good vibe going through the organization. One of the books that I've presented in these talks is How to Think Like a CEO by Deborah Burton. How to Think Like a CEO by Deborah Burton. And that's a real good book to read and be aware of if you're a business that's going through rapid growth, just on how to develop and project yourself with self-confidence. And the book goes over traits of a near-perfect CEO. Okie dokie. I want to talk a little bit about managing your own personal growth. And the first thing up here is personal managerial maturity. And that is directly related to emotional intelligence. So the higher your emotional intelligence score, the more likely you are doing just fine from the standpoint of projecting yourself with managerial maturity. And so I encourage all entrepreneurs, before you initiate the startup process, or if you're in the midst of the startup process, to take the EQI 2.0 emotional intelligence instrument and find out where your soft spots are. Find out what emotional intelligence realms and scales you don't score very high on. Because we can't change our psychological type, but we can change our emotional intelligence behavior. And if you know your weak scales and realms, you can develop a personal development program that helps you increase your strengths and abilities within this particular area. In this day and age of smartphones and computers and websites, social networking, and like from financial management, you can just download your bank statement from the bank or credit card statements and have it instantaneously go right into QuickBooks without even reviewing the transactions, because once the computer knows that any transaction from this vendor goes right to there, and you're set up to understand read the vendor from the statement in. It just does these things automatically, or sets it up for you. But still, there's a learning curve that goes into that. So there's technical skills, abilities, and knowledge that, in this particular day and age, you just have to take the time to learn. I talked earlier in other videos of lynda.com, lynda.com is just a fabulous place for tutorial videos on how to use very high-powered programs such as Excel or PowerPoint or database programs or graphic and video editing programs. The more of the stuff you can do yourself and or be aware of its capabilities, the more in control you'll be interfacing with all the stuff that goes on in technology management today. Many organizations have what's called a Chief Technology Officer. And so technology is such an important part of business administration in terms of computers and databases and things of this sort, that it's not unusual that some organization actually have a full-time person who's their IT person, and in some cases they actually have a corporate officer position called Chief Technology Officer. Finally, the rate by which your corporate culture will be accept growth. So know that I use this as stagecoach theory, but the corporate culture of your organization, its ability to change and adapt a thing, is the mean average of everyone in the organization. So change often has to be done in accordance with the psychological type of people. So you might want to be, in the back of your mind, putting people in groups or categories based on temperament, and then approach and work with those groups and their temperament, in a way that is most acceptable to them. Anyway, this whole talk really distills down into working with meeting minutes, meeting agendas, action item registers, and corporate calendars, and working and learning how to manage these things on a weekly basis is key to your ultimate success as a business, and especially as you guide yourself through the startup process of a business. So to that note, that ends our talk on introduction to setting up and managing your business administration systems. See you at our next lecture.